Hello everyone. Welcome to today's webinar. How dear, how to step up your linguistic review for structured content. Sorry, I was just having a little memory slip here. Welcome, thank you for joining us today. I'm Amanda Etheridge, Marketing Manager at WhP, and I'm happy to host today's webinar with Catherine Shi, our North America Customer Success Manager, along with Dominique Trouche, our CEO, and the head of our consulting practice. Now, today's webinar will last approximately 30 to 40 minutes, and we'd like you to keep your microphones muted during our conversation and presentation. And any questions you have along, as long as Dominique speaks, you can write in the chat box, and we will go through your questions once Dominique and Catherine have finished. I think that's all from me today, and I'd like to leave the floor to Catherine. Catherine?
Excellent. Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, wherever you may be. I'm in Ottawa, Canada, North America, so it's still morning for me. So welcome to our seminar. Thanks for joining us, and thanks, Amanda, for the introduction. So I'm going to kick it off with a couple of questions for Dominique. And Dominique, can you tell us what is linguistic review?
Okay, linguistic review is part of a translation process. It consists in checking, once a translator has translated, checking that the translation actually is accurate and complies with terminology and corporate style guide with the company. So this linguistic review is mandatory when we are working in a regulated industry, whether we talk about pharmaceutical, medical devices, aerospace, and like that. It's definitely not mandatory for other industries, just like software publishers, automotive, or apps, but it's still highly recommended in order to make sure that the quality the quality achieved is in sync with your expectation. If you never do any linguistic review, it's likely that your quality will decrease, and sooner or later you're going to hear from your users about the quality of your translation.
If you don't mind, we'd like you to give your opinion on where you stand on linguistic review. So we have a short poll here that we'd like you to complete. Here you go. So do you carry out linguistic review today within your organization every time on major releases, on major languages?
Are you
Not
sharing?
now.
Are you sharing, Amanda? It
Yeah.
seems that
Sorry. Yeah. Here we go. Yes. Do you carry out your linguistic review every time on major releases, on major languages? Not now, but will do in the future, or never? You have 13 of you have voted out of 22, 14.
it seems that I'm not allowed as a speaker. That doesn't matter. So you might not have all of them eventually, but it doesn't matter. But it's interesting to see that nobody says never. It's interesting to see that most of the people do it every time. I think I know we have got a couple of attendees which are working for regulated industries, so that might explain why.
Okay, Dominique, I think we can close the poll.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit gauged based on what we know. It's a little bit gauged by the audience. Of course, when we talk about linguistic review, those which are doing a lot of linguistic review are more interested than others. What we can see, generally speaking, when we do, because we are doing consulting for many of our customers, we can see that most of our customers do either on major releases on major languages. Some of them do from time to time, not that often. A a few of them actually never do it. So it's because they have found some difficulties. We are here to basically to talk about these difficulties. Catherine?
Right. Okay, Dominique, so can you tell us why linguistic review?
So the linguistic review is to make sure that the quality complies with the expectation, and so whether expectations are regulated or regulatory or not. But it has to be done by it shall not be done by another translator. It's counterproductive. If you do it by another translator, it's going to be there's going to be arguments between both translators, and the second translator will not add anything. So it has to be done by a company expert, which is speaking the language. So we call it usually the in-country reviewer. So you can see in many documentation, you can see ICRs. This is an in-country reviewer. This in-country reviewer is someone working in the country. Obviously, is not dedicated to linguistic review, so he's doing that on top of his job. Usually, it's someone in terms of field or marketing in the country. So you have to make sure that this person, which is critical in your process, actually does not spend too much time in doing unusual or let's say non-useful tasks, and make sure that he doesn't lose time trying to understand the tool or trying to understand your content structure. So you have to maximize his value. And that's really important when you do that. They are very critical in your process. It's very difficult. I think you all experience that. You all know that it's very difficult to convince people in the countries to contribute to the localization process by reviewing the content.
And Dominique, who is reviewing linguistic review, and what are they actually looking for?
It's what I mentioned. So we are reviewing. Let's say it's the in-country reviewer, which is reviewing. Is not let's say the documentation manager is asking for him to review. Is looking for the quality. Is looking for traceability as well. When we're in regulated industry, we have to demonstrate that the content has been reviewed, and we need to make sure that this person feels fully committed to a process.
And how does it work for structured content?
Okay, let's explain first how it works for usual content before going into structured content. So how does it work? It has to work with bilingual review. So it just cannot review a content just reviewing the target content, because the content you deliver on the market has to be consistent with the source content. So that's the first thing. It has to be provided on bilingual format. So usually there's a combination between Word bilingual files using track changes features, or review on PDF, annotating the PDFs. So that's let's say a combination of these two processes. What's important is that whatever happens, eventually the changes have to be approved by the translator. The translator is eventually responsible for the quality of a translation memory. So because if let's say in-country review might introduce some spelling mistakes, might introduce some changes which are not consistent with the terminology or some consistent with the official style guide. So then the translator has to review it. But before, the in-country reviewer is responsible for reviewing the content. So now let's talk about structured content. What is structured content and why is it different? So structured content means that the content is created in chunks or pieces of information, which are reused in many outputs. So we usually call them topics, depending on there are different standards, but it's usually called topics. So these are delivered in many outputs, and we no longer less and less talk about documents. We very often the information is consumed as information. So maybe some kind of, it can be consumed with chatbots. It can be consumed with contextual help, web customer support, where we don't have a formal document. But it's still PDFs are very common there. So in structured content, in order to be reused, these topics are including some mechanisms, just like variables or conditional content, which make it easier for reusing. But on the other hand, it makes it more complex to localize. So they're all based in XML, with usually with a lot of different tags and attributes, which makes also something a little bit different. And so you have different solutions. So you might be using Madcap Prayer, you might be using Alpharit, you might be using RoboHelp as tools. You might be using standards like DocBook or S1000D if you're in aerospace, or DITA, which is a standard, but there are many others. So I mentioned those, but there are many others. So these structured content are based on XML and have reuse mechanisms with variables and conditional. So why doesn't not the traditional process, as I mentioned, with Word and or with PDFs, do not work any longer? In Word, it doesn't work any longer because the sentences have no context, and there are tags, inline tags. These inline tags, let's say the reviewer does not have the full context. It doesn't know exactly. It has to know a little bit about the content, the structure of the content in order to be able to review it, and it can break the structure. If for instance, it deletes a tag, then the system would not work. So on the other hand, if you work on PDFs, so you can review on PDF. You have to have both PDFs and annotate the PDFs or enter in the Word file then, but the PDFs are reusing a lot of content. So the reviewers then keeps on reviewing the same content for all the documents. So it spends a lot of time reviewing content where it doesn't feel that it adds any value. And second, the PDFs are usually generated with certain conditions, so in certain documents. So the topics themselves are, let's say, all the content of the topics is not displayed. So not only you review a lot of content that you don't need to review, but you also have a lot of content which you need to review, which is not in the PDFs, to the extent that if you are publishing your topic into 6 different documents, if you want to be sure that you review all the content which has been translated, you need to review 6 PDFs for each language, which can be a little bit overwhelming for the in-country reviewer. So that's really making it different, and so there has to be something special for this structured content.
Nick, you're a global content consultant focusing on DITA. Why a global content consultant rather than a global content publisher, for example? And what's special with DITA?
So as a consultant, we've been so first we were a localization company specializing on DITA, and we realized that a lot of processes and a lot of content models were not really consistent with let's say, were not really localization friendly. So we became consultants to help customers designing localization friendly information models, content, and processes. So DITA is very important for us because it's a standard, and it's getting a mature standard. So it's been there for 15 years, and it's spreading in all industries. So I think we have it started with software and IT, but now you can very often it went to medical devices, and now we can see that in the automotive industry, in energy and automation, manufacturing, and it's spreading even in finance and legal, where it was definitely not technical. So what are the main assets of DITA for? Why is it spreading? It's spreading for 2 major reasons. So you have plenty of experts. They will tell you 15 good reasons. I can summarize those good reasons in two steps. So one is specialization. DITA allows you to specialize your information model to actually fit exactly what you are targeting, what you are planning to do with your content. And this is extremely useful when you to be really efficient. And the second, which might be maybe the reason why it's spreading so quickly, it's because there's a tool called DITA Open Toolkit, which is provided, with helps designing or publishing the content. And publishing the content it doesn't mean only publishing into PDFs or publishing into HTML. It means publishing into whatever you want, and doing and processing the content a little bit how you want it to be processed. And when you have specialization, you can add these plugins to properly manage your content. but you can have plugins as well for different things. So for instance, you can publish your content into e-learning module. You can publish your content into Word or InDesign if you want to publish in marketing. You can publish your content for different publishing channels. And that's what we are using for the augmented review feature. But we have designed a plugin for DITA Open Toolkit, and that definitely created a valuable, let's say, a valuable platform for us to design. If it hadn't been the augmented review, the DITA Open Toolkit, we certainly wouldn't have invested in all the technology solutions we have designed around DITA.
So we see DITA as a prevailing standard in structured tech doc. Can you tell us a bit more and perhaps show us what this solution looks like?
Yeah, we have designed this solution for augmented review, which is taking the benefits of DITA and for localization for doing this review. So how did it start? So while I'm switching I'm starting to share my screen. So how did it start? It started when you have an innovation. It's usually starting by you need three things. You need first a customer need. So you need to make sure that there's a need, otherwise you have an innovation which is useless. You need to make sure you have an efficient technology, and that's where the DITA Open Toolkit comes into the picture. And you need to have an innovative mindset or DNA, and that's basically what WhP is bringing. So it started as in a DITA conference in Seattle in 2014. So it's quite old now, and we had a discussion with many customers, and we have discussion with the people from DITA Open Toolkit and say, hey, we can do certainly something for increasing the review. And we initiated this augmented review. So I hope you all can see my screen now. So this is basically what's provided to the in-country reviewer. So the in-country reviewer gets a link, and he can see the screen. It will certainly see that at the very beginning. So it will. You see here you can unfold the map. You can see that this is a map. So I should mention that this is using our content sample, which is written in DITA. So we are using DITA ourselves for our documentation. We use Git as a repository and Oxygen for offering the content. But whatever we are displaying, whatever we are showing here, works for any DITA structure. So you can see here there's a map. You can see that the topics are present here. Some topics are red, some topics are green, and there should be some black topics as well. So let me explain. Red means something has to be reviewed. Green means, okay, it's already been translated in the previous release and it's already been reviewed, so don't spend much time reviewing that. And if ever there were black topics, it would mean that these topics were not included in the package, because we can work in an agile methodology and receive only some topics. We might not receive all topics for every project. So the reviewer is supposed to, you can see from very beginning, it will not spend time reviewing content he has already reviewed. It will focus on what's to be reviewed. So if I'm a reviewer, I'm just clicking on a topic. You can see here, as a topic is presented in bilingual form in both in 2 columns. So I can close this to have more space. You can see that it's broken down into, you can see that when I'm switching over, it's broken down into segments for those, not just DITA elements, but segments for translation. So it means sentences. So if you can see those which are black means that they've already been reviewed. So I can focus on only red sentences within the topic. This one, I'm happy with the translation. So I'm going to say, okay, this page is okay for me. If I go back to the thing, you can see that this page has now turned green. So I can go to the next, and I get to next one. So I'm going to another page, which is to be reviewed. You can see that this one, now you can see that we are still in context, so we can see the images as well. It's broken down into sentences. So for instance, for those who speak French, some in the audience, you can see that this sentence has got a spelling mistake. a couple of minutes to see where the spelling mistake is. So that's you have here the source text, the original translation, and this is the correct translation. So I can modify here. There should be double F in this, so I can say comments. I can give a sentence I can give a comment to the translator, because don't forget that eventually the translation will go to the translator. The review content will go to a translation. I can select a type. For instance, I'm going to say this one is something about language, because afterwards it's going to help us compute KPIs. I'll say close. Yep. Sorry, I shouldn't say close. I'm not an expert. I should save my changes. So be careful. And I said it's a language, and say save changes. And you can see now that the sentence has turned green and it's been corrected. So I can go like that. You can see that I've got all my sentences. Here, there are the sentences down there are great. Maybe you don't see that well on using Zoom, but these sentences are great because they're not part of the topics. You certainly know that notes are usually some conrefs when we speak about DITA. So, and they are not part of the content. But if ever I spot a mistake, I can click on this icon there, and I can go and edit my conref, my reference file where the conref comes from. And the same way, exactly how the same way it's been done for the rest of the content. I'm coming back to my thing. I forgot to mention that if ever I spot a mistake in a content, in a segment which was previously reviewed, but I still spot a mistake, I cannot modify the translation, but I can still notify the translator. But there's a spelling mistake, for instance, that it should take care of. I say save changes, so it's going to flow. It's going to flow to the translator. Now let's go to another to see another feature. So when there are inline tags, for instance, that's something important. I told you that when we're using Word, there could be a risk that the translator, the reviewer in Word would break the structure. So here, if I look at this sentence, for instance, you will see that this is the connection at WHP is actually a conref or conky ref, to be more, because I know the content is smaller. It's a conky ref. So when I'm trying to correct it, I cannot modify it. I cannot modify the conky ref because it's coming from another topic. I can modify the rest of the segment, as you can see, but I cannot break the sentence. I cannot break the structure, the DITA structure. So if I go there, so I can see that it's been so. And once again, if I'm not happy, I can click on the icon and go to the link and edit the reference file where the conky refs are coming from. So we've seen how it works with variables. So you remember that was one of the issues with variables that were coming from the DITA content. Another thing we're talking about, this one we've seen it. Okay, it's conditional content. That's another very often thing which is used in, okay, when there are conditional content, when there are topics which are conditionalized in the map, it's not an issue. Both topics will appear in the map. They will be reviewed sequentially, so it's not an issue. But when you have content with conditional content within a topic, what we do here, we have all conditions which are displayed. And to the extent that you can see that some sentences here, just like this one, doesn't make any sense. E-learning software technical documentation is more complex to localize than plain text. This doesn't make any sense. But if ever, because you see, I've selected all my things. So if I selected I select only DITA, for instance, or I can select up. So you can see that the sentences, the content is disappearing as I speak. you can see that based on conditions, content is appearing or disappearing depending on the condition I'm selecting. And so for the technical, for the reviewer, it just it reviews depending on conditions, and then you can see exactly the thing. So for instance, if I select DITA, I can see technical documentation is more complex to localize than plain text. And this translation wouldn't make sense, but here you can see that this is the translation, the corresponding translation. If I select e-learning, there should be more different content which is displayed, and this is extremely useful because very often you have this type of conditional content, and very often reviewers, they don't understand why there are two times or 3 times, 4 times a similar sentence, sometimes even exactly the same, because it's applied with conditions. So that's depending on the customer content. Maybe we have one customer which is in one very large customer in the automotive industry, and you know that in the automotive industry they play with the engines, the different parts of a thing. So there's a lot of conditions in all the topics. The same topics are reused 20, 30 times, but with always different conditions. So that's something you can see. Something else as well we see more and more often, we see people using MathML. MathML used to be a specialization, and now it's embedded in DITA. So you can have, for instance, you can see that this is the MathML structure, and it's working exactly the same way. You can see, just like you see images, you can see MathML formulas in the content. So you can see that this. So the goal of the in-country reviewer is to be able to have eventually all topics in green here. So I won't do that for all the things, or in green, or I've reviewed everything, and I say my document is ready. And accept all the documents, and it flows to the translation management system. So I won't do it on the spot now. I just want to mention another feature which was added recently. So for most of the customers, there's a translation process, and then there's one in-country reviewer which is reviewing the content. For some of our customers recently, especially in pharmaceutical or scientific environment, so we have many reviewers. So you can so if I come back to my, so here you can see that I can change my name as a reviewer. And if I go to the changes I did, where is my content, where I did make some changes. I think I made the changes here. So if I go again on my segment here, you're going to see that it's been I commented it, and someone else, there's going to be some handshake between reviewers and reviewers. So that's something so it's been working. It's working with plenty of different customers, and it's working with different customers, especially including in different industries, including customers which have very important specialization. We also design a specialization by ourselves for other topics, just like videos or measurement units, something we have done as well. So we know exactly how it's working. So basically that's it. So what we, just as a summary on the, I think I will switch to a PowerPoint presentation. Just to summarize that it's going to be very easy to understand where the value is. So for instance, right now the translator is translating, and then there's a lot of handshakes. It's sent a PDF, which is sent in a CCMS, and that's the usual process. I don't want to go into the different details, but that's how it's working. When we go to the augmented review, what's happening is that we publish, as I mentioned, directly from the translation environment. We publish using the DITA Open Toolkit with the augmented review plugin. So that's definitely what we use, a DITA Open plugin from the content which is provided from the translation management system. Then the in-country reviews and updates. It only reviews what's new, as you've seen, the red text in the red topics only, and then it updates, and then these updates are automatically flowing into the TMS again, where the translator will check that all the changes from the reviewers make sense, that they are correctly spelled, that they are compliant with the terminology, that they are compliant with, and it will learn as well from the changes, because and that's going to be very useful for the reviewer, because next time you won't have to correct the same mistakes, because the translator has learned in this process. And then the content is delivered into the TCMS, and once it's delivered into the CCMS, it's got another value. Since we publish with the DITA Open Toolkit, we can commit that all the content we deliver is completely consistent with DITA and consistent with the specialization, and can be published exactly the same way it's going to be published in the CCMS. And it can also be published once in the CCMS. It can be published without any further review, because it's been reviewed in the transition process. So the reviewer spends less time focusing on what's new, and the translation memory is fully up to date, and the translator learns from the reviewer. So everything is working completely fine. That's Catherine, you wanna?
Yep, I'm back. So Dominique, you mentioned that you commissioned this back in and around 2016, 2014, 2016. I know it's now used by many companies. What type of feedback are you receiving?
Yeah, so it was triggered in 2014. It was actually launched in 2016, because it took us some time to get it reviewed, to get it designed, and to make sure that we had the right model and stuff like that. So we launched it. I think it was in a DITA North America as well, somewhere in 2016. And so since then, we've been using with plenty of customers. So what we can I could mention what we measured here, but I will go to the next slide. So basically, what we realized, what we measured, is that we had 100% of the reviewers which were satisfied, and that's a tremendous result, because you remember my statement at the very beginning. These are the critical people in the process. So if they're not satisfied, sooner or later your process will break, and they won't either do properly the job, or they're just going to refuse to do the job. So that's definitely an outstanding result. On top of that, we had the cost savings on this process, because we only review what's to be reviewed. So we realized that we've taken an example on the document of 100 pages where 10% only were reviewed, and it was into Russian. So it's a specific project we measured. So we had 84% cost savings on this particular review process, not on the overall process project, of course. And the turnaround time as well was very significant. So 67% time saving. And beyond that, it's something, a side effect is that, as I mentioned, 100% of the project are fully compliant with DITA. So there's no longer, I think all documentation managers have experienced some nights where they had to sort the tags and try to identify why it doesn't publish, what's going on with this tag, and what happened in the things. So I think that's really something important. Maybe, I don't know.
Yeah, Kim is here.
I think that Kim is here, so maybe you can unmute Kim if she's not shy enough. Maybe she can share, because I mentioned that we started in 2016, and of course, when we launch such a feature, we try to find a customer, which we use as a guinea pig for validation. No, let's put it differently. We find a partner where we partner with to validate the feature.
A valuable partner.
Sorry, Kim. I didn't.
No. You're good. You're good. Yes, we definitely were looking for someone that could help us. We had a lot of, I'd say, tangled content, and needed someone to make sure that we kept it straight and clear, so that when it came back into our system, we had something we could use. I would definitely say that WHP helped us with that. They helped keep everything straight and clean, clear. Our reviewers love this ability to be able to see what they can go in and make changes to. So I appreciate that as well. And it's always good to see. I don't get to see this part a lot of times, so it's always good to have the refresher.
And we've got.
Kim, do you mind sharing with the group which organization you're with?
Oh, sure.
If you don't mind, just to put into perspective.
I work for Emerson. We're a global company, and I manage the measurement solutions division. So we're one of the largest, I'm going to say, chunks. It's a multi-BU part of Emerson. So we take care of all automation, measurement of liquids and gases products around the world. Yep.
Okay. Thank Kim. So beyond Emerson, plenty of customers are using it, and we have some every day we've got new challenges with new specialization, new languages as well. So there are right to left languages, so it works as well for Arabic. There are a couple of more languages which are Arabic and beyond Arabic and Hebrew, which are right to left and always challenging for documentation review. I guess you know about publishing as well. It's challenging. And yeah, and we are doing it with our content as well, always challenging our content. Okay, turnaround time stands for TAT. Sorry, stands for turnaround time. So it means the average time. It means the average time we take for review was from starting to the end. And this is extremely important because nowadays I think this I mentioned that this augmented review feature can work with Agile. So it doesn't need a full document to be working. It can work only on few topics. And this is extremely important because more and more customers are working in an Agile methodology or continuous translation. Sometimes they call it mean that you translate topic whenever they are ready without waiting for these topics to be included in documents. And so this allows, of course, when you finalize your document, or when you finalize your information set, all documents have been translated, so you can even save far more time if you work Agile than if you work in what we call a waterfall, translating a full document when it's ready. So that's important.
Dominic, on this slide you have TAT underneath the third.
Yeah, that's what I'm explaining.
Yeah. Okay. Perfect.
It's and ROI stands for return on investment. I think that everybody knows
Everyone knows that one.
Knows that word, because it's we are driven by finance. But I think TAT turnaround time becomes more and more important. I think when once again we are doing consulting, so we very often customers come to us in consulting practice not for saving cost, but very often for saving time, for versatility, for reactivity, for getting agile, not for saving cost, because usually costs have been optimized, and whenever we work on saving costs, we usually save 10 to 20% cost. When we work on agile saving time, we usually divide by 3 or 4 the overall duration of a translation process by working agile. So I think this is becoming more and more critical for many organizations. Turnaround time is more critical than ROI.
Excellent. Well, thanks for sharing all of that with us. And thanks, Kim, for being such a big advocate and proponent of augmented review. We appreciate your live feedback here. So let's see if we have any questions. Again, if you do have any questions, just feel free to share it in the chat here, and we'll hopefully get to them. I don't see any questions coming up yet. So how about I pose one? How can I be sure that augmented review will work for my content?
Okay, so first I told you that, so you don't trust me when I told you that it's going to work. No, it's just let's say it's working for all DITA content. So if your DITA content is really working with is properly published and is legal, I would say, DITA content, it's going to work. If you want to be sure that it's working, you can contact us. You share this sample, and we'll demonstrate but how the augmented review will work with your content, and not only the augmented review, we've got other solutions as well. We can demonstrate how this feature would work with your content, and we can do what we call a proof of concept, which we call a POC among ourselves, just like TAT, ROI. It's 3 letters acronyms. We like them, just like WHP, by the way. And so it's a POC, and through the POC we just run a very simple process. We run your content through our solutions, and we demonstrate how it's going to work with your content. It can be done with your transition memories, or it can be done with whatever we want. We can do on a sample of test. But I can swear that we've demonstrated to all our customers that it could work. It was actually working. That's a value of DITA becoming a standard.
Excellent. There certainly are a lot of acronyms in our industry. So I don't see any other questions. How about I ask another one? Is this a technology that WHP sells to be implemented by our own IT department, for example?
No, it's a technology. As you can see, it's a cloud-based technology. So it's not a technology which is to be implemented by IT system, and it's implemented as part of our workflow. So basically, it works with our services, our localization services. We work with DITA localization services, and when we translate, when we let our customers review the content. Because it has to be tuned based on the translation management system. It's related to translation management system. It's completely integrated within translation management system. We are using a couple of off-the-shelf translation management system to do this solution. So it's very straightforward. There's no installation to do. There's no requirement on your side. There's hardly no training. We've got e-learning session. We've got tutorial for in-country reviewers, but it's very, as you've seen, it's very easy to use, and very few reviewers actually require some further support or training on this. So it's very easy to set up and to run. So that's
excellent. I don't see any other questions. Shall we give it a couple of seconds just to see if anything comes up here?
Yeah, maybe I can add. So another question is why does it work for other standard than other format than DITA? It doesn't work as it is presented here for other standards than DITA, but we have similar solution, not to the same level of service, but we have solutions for the other standards or other technologies which are not DITA, but we can help save some time compared to the PDF or Word review as well.
Okay, doesn't look like we have any other questions.
So
I'll pass it over to Amanda.
No, that's a good question from Kevin.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's how do you review the images? So I didn't show actually, because the images can be shown as well displayed as well in the translated content. So in the content I shown, all the images on even French side were in English. Actually, the images on the French side can be on the target side can be in target language. So I need to improve my demonstration, because my content set is not fully let's say demonstrative. But we still, in the review, we cannot review the SVG itself. In the review, we can the reviewer can make comments on the SVG and mention in plain text that this text should be replaced by this one, or that there's a mistake, and then the translator will take care of that. We have another tool where we convert the SVGs into DITA, and we can run this SVG using the augmented review. The SVG content in augmented review can be run as a, for instance, if part of content is 25 SVGs, if you wanna make sure that you review the content using this augmented review where you can edit the content, we've got another tool which we call Agile Graphics to be able to review the SVG in context as well. So don't hesitate as well if you've got SVG. SVGs can be very tricky, can be very well formed and can be poorly formed. So I think everybody which is dealing with images knows that. And we also have designed a small tool just to pre-test the SVG to know whether they're going to be localization friendly or not. And we've got guidelines as well. Don't hesitate to ask guidelines on how to create SVGs so that they are localization friendly. So that's a good question, and a good recommendation as well is that to use SVG as much as you can instead of PNG, provided your source image can work with SVG, but I think it's highly recommended to use SVGs.
Dominique, this is Kim.
Yep.
I think the other thing that we could add to this is if we had this challenge, we definitely did, and for my team, we decided to do call outs. So we would take the image, the graphic, whatever, and mark it with letters or numbers. And then the call outs could be edited because they'd be outside of that image.
Yeah, but sometimes you've got graphics and sometimes the graphics themselves are not that efficient when you do things.
Right.
And yeah, while we are talking about challenges, we have another challenge which we are starting to address with Kim as well, is and with some others, is videos localization. So if you have tutorials or stuff like that you would like to localize as well, don't hesitate as well to share with us. And here as well, we are using the beauty of DITA and the value of DITA to improve the process of video localization, even for they're not at all related to DITA. But that's something I think it's going to be another webinar. I don't want to spoil my future webinars by disclosing everything. Okay.
Okay, I think that would be it. So Amanda, over to you to close out our webinar. You're still muted, Amanda.
Hello, Amanda.
Okay, sorry, my mute button had disappeared. Yes, so thank you, Kim, thank you, Dominique and Catherine, for this interesting conversation around linguistic review, video, and image localization. So we've started a round of webinars and summits, as Dominique has mentioned, and we don't want to spoil it all for you today. So we'll hopefully see you on September the 16th. We're going to be talking about translation memories, and we'll have a half-day summit on the localization of software and technical documentation on October the 28th. And you will find invitations and links on our website for both those events. So thank you for coming.
If you allow me a couple of seconds on the transition memory. Everybody knows the transition memory. Everybody knows what we can do with transition memories. But using transition memory, optimizing the use of transition memory, how we maintain, how we structure, how we leverage transition memory, how we can check transition memories, all the things we can do with transition memory. Once again, it's I think it's not just the basics for transition memory, but the advanced for transition memory that we'll discuss on the 16th of September.
Okay. So I think our time is up. Thank you all for coming today and watching the whole session. And we look forward to seeing you very soon.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
Thanks to all of you.